your mic. Okay.
I don't know what happened, but yeah, I mean, it's working everywhere else, but not here. Didn't
Oh,
see. I don't know why. But anyway, finally get to speak here. Here's my question, right? And did you get a chance to see the blog, the blog I drafted?
I haven't looked at that yet.
Oh, okay.
Actually, can you? It might have got lost in the
No worries.
discussions. There's so much stuff going on. But if you can directly send me a message on Discord with the link to that, I'll take a look.
Sure. One question I had, I asked Greg and the others, in your team.
Hmm.
The question is, okay, and to the point that you just made, does sharding happen uh, before the consensus takes place or after?
I mean, sharding is happening all the time, right? Sharding is sort of like a mapping of the nodes into different groups, and that mapping is already there. And when a transaction comes in, because it gets routed only to the nodes that need to deal with that transaction, you can think of it as sharding is happening at that point, right? Uh, yeah, so the transactions get routed only to the shards where like there's account A and B in this transaction. Account A is in one shard, account B is in another shard. You only need to route it to those two shards. And then you have the proof of quorum happening where the transaction then gets consensus upon, and then once that takes place, then the transaction is committed. But one of the nice things is we don't have to send this transaction now to everybody else, and everybody else updates the state and all that, because the states are held just within shard A and B, right? So
Right. And my follow-up question is, are we committing to transactions before grouping them in blocks and then sharding it?
um yeah, so we're basically processing the transactions before we put them into any kind of block. Every transaction that comes in, it's real simple to visualize this, right? Like if you have a network of nodes, a transaction comes in from the outside, goes to some node. That node, like let's say the transaction deals with account A and B. That node may not even be in the shards for A and B, but it knows about all the other nodes, and it knows who it has to route it to. So it routes it to the appropriate sets of nodes that actually deal with account A and B. Now, once it gets to those nodes talk to each other. There's cross shard communication where the nodes from account A share the data with nodes in account B. Nodes in account B share the data with nodes in account A. And then once they all have the data, they can all look at that data, say, okay, if I apply this transaction, would I get a valid state from this, right? For example, if account A didn't have sufficient funds, you would not get a valid state because you don't want any account to ever go negative. So, based on that, they accept or reject the transaction. And once, 50% or more of the nodes in the consensus group have voted on the transaction, then we formed a receipt. So all of the nodes now have a receipt. And based on that receipt, they can apply the transaction. So the nodes in shard A only apply the transaction to account A. They don't have to worry about account B. Nodes in account, the other shard that's holding account B only apply that transaction to B, and they don't have to worry about changing account A because that's in another shard, right?
Yep.
But they know from the receipt that the other nodes in shard A are going to deduct, right? And in shard B, they're going to add, right? So everybody, based on that receipt, can now commit to that transaction and apply that transaction. Now, once the transaction is applied, how you package that transaction later on to store it doesn't matter anymore, right?
Got it. Thank you. Sorry for the
No
probably
problem. Yeah.
stupid questions.
No problem at all. I mean, it's good to dig into this and build your understanding of it.
Sure, and I'll let everyone else talk because I think there are more people joining in. Hey, do we have somebody from Russia? I think I saw. Who is that? Popu?
Sir, how sooner can we expect Shardium to be like to be to be already active, and when will you be taking validators? Would love to.
Yeah, so like the Shardist technology that we've built has actually, I mean, we've been working on it for 4 years. So that has come a long ways. And if you go and watch our videos, like if you go to shardist.com, there's a roadmap, and every quarter we achieve some milestone. And with that, we have a video linked, and you can follow the link onto YouTube and watch what we presented to the community that quarter. You can see us making progress along the way, and we've actually done I think like 2 quarters ago we did a demo where we showed 1,000 node network running on AWS. I think we used like T3 medium machines for that, and it was across I think 20 data centers, and it achieved 5,000 transactions per second, right? So approximately you're getting 5 transactions per node that's in the network. And the reason for that is like each node may actually be, let's say it's doing 50 transactions per second, or actually let's say it's doing 100 transactions per second, but our shard size is 20. So that's going to divide that 100 by 20. And so now you're only going to get approximately 5 transactions per node that joins the network, right? Which is still pretty good, right? I mean, like 5,000 actual transactions with a network of just 1,000 nodes. That's actually really good. And if we go to 10,000 nodes, we'd be at 50,000 transactions and so forth. So we've been able to achieve these kind of things. Now, the kind of stuff that we're working on now is actually integrating that EVM. So the EVM has its own state manager, has its own way of organizing the data and so forth. We're digging into the details of that, and we have to pull out that data and shard it, right? Because before, the EVM was designed to hold all the transactions, like hold everything, right? That's what happens with these Ethereum nodes. The EVM holds all the accounts. So now we have to deal with that EVM and not holding all the accounts. If the range of addresses that a node handles starts to get less and less because more nodes have joined the network, we have to go into that EVM state and delete some of that extra stuff, right? That it was holding before. Or, sometimes a node might drift and move to a different area. And with that, we end up having to, pull in some data from other nodes and stuff that into the EVM and so forth. So this is where the effort is going right now. And so with that, I think once we achieve this, it'll be like really fast that we can start showing a sharded network working, with a sharded Shardium network and demonstrate that we're actually starting to get linear scaling with that, right? Showing that as we add more nodes, we're now getting more TPS. So that's going to be our goal, to start demonstrating that. And then the final part of it is preparing this network to be solid and secure enough that it can stand up against any kind of an attack, right? I think that is probably the bigger challenge going forward than some of these other technical challenges, because we've already solved the sharding challenge with Shardis. We're now working on the tight integration of the EVM, but there's still the whole hardening, the hardening of the network. And as we have the alpha net out and beta net out, that'll give us time to look at what are some of the attacks that people can do. And we're going to put out bounties for hey, if you're a white hacker and you want to earn some money, show us how you would hack this network, right? And that would help us get the network to a point where we all feel that it's confident, it's solid, and then we're confident about launching the mainnet. So, and we definitely want to be one of these projects that hits our goals, right? Like, we don't just put out our timelines lightly. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with so many projects in the crypto space that say, oh, we're going to have, something ready by this quarter or whatever. And then a whole year goes by and you're still waiting, right, for it to happen. We definitely don't want to be like that. We want to be a project that hits our milestones.
Sir, one more question. I know I am asking too many questions. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I literally wish you success for this. Rooting for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sir, when you how did all this start? Why did you come up with the plan of Shardium, and how did you get into this piece, and why did you even think to build this Shardium and this sharding technique? And I would love to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if anybody's watched the first video that we had have posted on the Shardis website, I kind of talk about the background of why I started building Shardis. But to make kind of a long story short, back in 2008, I got interested in studying how money works. And I guess I would have to say that Ron Paul, who was a presidential candidate at that time, kind of got me started on thinking about money, because he would oftentimes in his speeches say that we need to go back to a sound money system. And I had no idea what he meant by sound money. Money was just something that, comes from one side, goes out the other, as I think it is for most people. And we don't actually think about where does it actually get created, things like that. Where does the tax money go? We never think about those kind of things too much. But I started digging into that and studying the history of money and so forth. And I wrote this economic paper titled Sound Money Without Commodities. Because in order to have sound money, typically what you do is you back it up with some sort of a commodity like gold. And after studying, money, I realized that it might be possible to, instead of backing our money with gold, we could back it with human time. And the human time sort of becomes like a commodity. And now we don't have to, tie up a physical resource just to back up this money that we're using. And so I once I wrote that paper, then I started thinking about, well, how can I implement this kind of a system? And there's a lot of issues in trying to implement a system like that, because people are going to try to do fraud and so forth with it. And I was doing some research to see what the current state was of a project called DigiCash, which was like started back in the 1990s. And I just wanted to see, like, did that project solve this money problem, and dealing with bad actors and things like that. But when I was searching around for that, I came across Bitcoin. And then, that just took me down another rabbit hole, which I haven't come out of yet. And, once I learned about Bitcoin and the concepts of blockchain, it still took a while to realize that I could build this system that I wanted, of a sound money system using, the blockchain technologies. It was actually after Ethereum came out that people started to see that you could pretty much do whatever you want on a blockchain. And then that's when I started to realize that, we could do this. And then, and also after coming across Bitcoin, I realized that the scalability of these kind of platforms is going to be a big issue. And my background is actually in building scalable systems for large enterprises. So, I've worked at NASA, at Yahoo, at Zynga. I've consulted for various mobile game development companies. And so with that, I've always worked on the back end systems where, we had to deal with, millions of daily active users and thousands of requests per second coming into these networks. And so I had, had a lot of experience in building those kind of systems, and sharding was something that, was very common in these systems. And I started thinking about how sharding could be applied to blockchains and so forth. And finally, in 2016, around the middle of 2016, I left my consulting work that I was doing for a mobile game company and just locked myself up in the library and, started working on the design. And I called it, Unblocked Sharded Ledger was the name that I gave to this system that, I built, because it was a ledger rather than a blockchain, and it was unblocked because, the transactions weren't grouped into blocks before they were processed, and, the whole system was sharded. So I worked on that for about a year and a half, and towards the end of 2017, I started putting a team together, and that's how, the Shardeum project got started. And then in I think 2018 or 2019, Nishal was starting with Xerox. Xerox was still kind of small. So Shardeum has its own token. And we give that token to people that work on the Shardeum project. And we don't pay them in dollars or anything else. We just give them our own token. And we, expect them to sell the token and convert it to, something else to pay their bills. And, getting that token on some exchanges was kind of important for us. So we were talking to exchanges, and that's where we, approached Xerox, and Michelle actually, met with us back in that time. I forgot exactly when that was. I'll have to look it up now. And he really liked what we were doing. He really liked our project. But the only problem was he couldn't get us on the exchange because we were all just like tech people, no marketing people. So we never bothered to build a community. So And if you don't have a community, exchanges don't want to list you, right? Because like exchanges make money when the community comes in and starts trading the coin. If if there's no community, for sure that that coin isn't going to trade much. And what happens to coins that don't trade? They get delisted, right? So why list a coin that is not going to trade much to begin with? So we never got listed on Xerox, but Nishal liked the project so much that he would watch our quarterly events and so forth. And eventually, when we got to the point where we demonstrated this 1,000-node network hitting 5,000 transactions per second, he reached out to me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I have this idea I'd like to talk to you about." And so then we met up, and he said, explained to me how he wants to build a smart contract platform. And, would we be able to use the technology that I've built so far to, accelerate that, right? And so I went back and I talked to my team, and we, dug into it, and, we thought through like all the roadblocks that could happen. And, we realized there's going to be some technical challenges, but, none of it looked like it was, impossible. There's some hurdles to cross, but it's not impossible. So that's how, Michelle and I got going on this project. So.
Hey, you guys know Farmville? Facebook's Farmville?
I think I know that.
So that's Zynga. That's NASA, Yahoo, and Zynga. Those are the kind of organizations Omar was working, and he was helping them to scale them. That will be part of the blog that we are doing right now. You can look forward to it. But yeah, the Farmville is very popular. That's why I want to bring that up.
Right. Yeah, and Farmville was actually already created when I joined Zynga. And then, but there's another game called Castleville, which was built by the team here in Dallas. So Zynga had like several studios in various different cities. And the studio here in Dallas, we built Castleville.
Hey, Omar, have you talked
Hey, how's it going, Greg?
Hey guys, good. I'm Greg Hemmer, one of the contributors with the Shardeum project. I've been working with Shardians since 2018 and know Omar very well. Omar, have you mentioned Arima yet or talked about your history with Arima? If not, I would like to bring that up quickly too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess the connection for Arima, one of the connections is that I sold some Arima sets for Bitcoin back when Bitcoin was like $10.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say.
So did you own those Bitcoins?
Yeah, except I didn't sell too many Arima sets for Bitcoin because I was like a little wary of doing that. I just wanted to sell enough to get a few Bitcoins, but not too much that like if this, I felt like, man, I'm really giving away something real and physical that I can get real money for. But, just to get this, fake money that I just want to play around with. I just wanted to get some so that I could have some in my wallet and transfer. And in fact, I actually donated a lot of that because, there was some politician in New Hampshire. He was running for Senate or Congress or something like that. But he was accepting Bitcoin. And I sent him one Bitcoin because, one Bitcoin was like $10. And I was like, oh, I want to support this guy who's, supporting Bitcoin. And that's just, the way people were. I sent Bitcoin to Wikipedia as soon as they started, accepting Bitcoin. So nobody ever thought Bitcoin is going to hit the kind of numbers that it did or gain the level of traction that it did. So, back in those days, people were just, happy to get a few Bitcoins and play around with it. But I know there's some people that had this vision of, man, this is going to be like huge. And they were just gobbling up Bitcoin. So, but yeah, I wasn't one of those people. But so Arima is a game that I invented. I think it, so. I started on it back in like 1997. I don't know if you guys like if you're chess fans, you might remember that there was a time when IBM built a computer to play chess, and it defeated Gary Kasparov, who was the world champion in chess at that time. And that was a really big deal. Internet wasn't even that old at the time, but that story was all over the internet, and people were talking about it. And at that time, I was actually doing my master's in AI, and so I understood how computers played strategy games, and basically I knew that they create like a tree with each node being like a position of the game, and then generating a subtree below that for all the different moves that you can do from that position, and so forth. And they just kind of brute force and look forward as much as possible. Of course, they use lots of pruning techniques, like alpha, beta, and min max, and things like that, to reduce the size of the tree that they have to search. And in chess, you basically have about 30 positions on average from any given position. So that's referred to as like a branching factor of 30. And I wanted to create a game that had a really high branching factor. And so my first attempt was just like, oh, let's just take chess and allow people to do multiple moves per turn, right? So now instead of 30, like if somebody could do 4 moves per turn, then that would be like 30 to the 4th power, right? And so that would increase the branching factor. But I realized when I actually tried to play a game like that it's just like too mind-bogglingly hard for humans to deal with the amount of changes. But eventually, when I was teaching my son how to play chess, realized that even if you use pieces that have very simple steps, but you allow multiple steps per turn, you can actually get a high branching factor. And so that's how I ended up creating Arima, and I put it out into the community, into the AI community. I wrote a paper and challenged the AI community to build a program that could beat the top human players, and I would give them $10,000. And a lot of people, took me up on that. And we, since 2004 until 2000, I think it was like in 2014 that the challenge was actually won. So for about 10